Welcome to today's lecture. Today's topic is pet food processing with animal byproducts. This is the fourth lecture in this series. Earlier we have discussed about the basics of pet foods. Secondly, about the basics of pet nutrition. And third one about the use of byproducts in pet food in general introduction. Today we are going to discuss the actual processing of pet foods with byproducts. So here first we will discuss about the quick process of making pet foods either by extrusion method in case of dry pet foods, or in case of moist or semi-moist it is done by canning. So these two methods briefly we will discuss. Later we will discuss little details about all the ingredients and their preparation, the brief about the formulation, and then we will discuss in details about the manufacturing of pet foods, about the process of extrusion, how the animal byproducts should be prepared before including in the pet foods, and also little bit details about the pet food preparation by using canning. Here we can see at a glance the detailed steps for the manufacturing of dried pet foods by using modern extrusion machine or extrusion process. First, the raw materials are taken as per the formulation. Then there should be a quality analysis. Then all the ingredients should be taken as per the formulation and weighing should be done. Then there is a hammer mill for grinding. Then some coarse flours will be mixed again, and then again there will be dry and wet ingredients will be mixed. Then it makes a moist dough. After that it goes for a pre-conditioning or heating, and then it enters into the actual extrusion process in the extruder machine, and here it goes through a high heat treatment and molding or shaping and also cutting. Then it goes for drying. So this is the basic manufacturing part. After that it goes through some finishing steps which we will see next. Here in continuation of the dry pet food manufacturing by extrusion method, we have seen the drying of the extruded products. Then it will be further cooled, and there will be vacuum coating and spraying of fats or oils on the surface, and there will be even distribution of fat, and sometime there will be a coating with taste and smell enhancer, and then it is ready for packing. So this is the total steps for preparation of dried pet foods, the manufacturing of dried pet foods by extrusion method. In the bottom left side we can see a continuous processing machine or line, and in the right side we can see the brief diagram for this process: the dry ingredients, then heating, then extrusion, then drying, and then flavoring, cooling, and packaging, which we are going to see again in details. Here once again we can see the complete flow of operation in extrusion processing of dried pet foods. The left side top, number one is the different ingredients. They should be made ready and taken in weight as per the formulation. Then there is a pre-conditioning or heating. Then it goes to the extrusion, that is a high heat and pressure processing, and finally it comes out in different shape and size as per the mold used. Then it undergoes a drying oven and then cooling in number 4. Then number 5 there is a coating or flavor enhancing, and number 6 there is packaging. So this is brief understanding about the making of dried pet foods. Now we will see briefly a complete process about the wet or canned pet food manufacturing process. The first part is almost except the ingredients. In case of dry pet food, the ingredients are mostly dry except a few, whereas here some ingredients can be raw and wet, and after mixing everything it is packed into the cans or retort pouches. So first raw material is taken, quality analysis, ingredients weighing as per the formulation, then mincing and hammer mill, almost same steps. Then the coarse flour again mixed, and then it undergoes a pre-cooking at 100 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes. Then it is cooled. Then it is packed inside the retort pouches. Modern time it is the flexible retortable special pouch, that is called laminates are used. Earlier days it was done in metal cans. Now after filling it is hermetically sealed, so it is completely airtight and moisture proof. Now it undergoes the actual thermal processing, which is also called as retort processing. It is a high temperature and pressure processing, and which is enough for sterilization of the material and killing all the pathogens. So it is done minimum at 121 degrees Celsius for 32 minutes at about 20 psi. Now after this processing, slowly it will be cooled down, and then it is stored at around room temperature. So this is briefly about the making of wet or canned pet food processing. So I have already explained in brief about the method of extrusion for dry pet food and about the canning for wet pet food processing. Now we will discuss step by step all the details. The first is the raw materials or ingredients. So here different variety of ingredients are there. First is the low quality carcass or parts or the byproducts, different organs like intestine, kidneys, liver, lungs, udder, spleen, stomach. These are the animal origin products or byproducts used in the pet food. There is cereal grains such as soybean meal, corn meal, cracked wheat, and barley are often used to improve the consistency of the product as well as to reduce the cost of the pet foods. Then there is liquid ingredients, which is mostly water, sometimes meat broth or blood. Then salt, preservatives, stabilizers will be added. Then there is some gelling agents, special functional properties for the food processing. These are often necessary, which allow greater homogeneity during processing and also control the moisture. They include bean and guar gums, cellulose, carrageenan, and other starches and thickeners. This is one part of the ingredients or materials. Further details we will see. In continuation to raw materials or ingredients, so there is a category of ingredients like palatability enhancer. They are like yeast, protein, fat, fish solubles, sweeteners, or concentrated flavors. Altogether we can say digests. So these are the materials from animal origin obtained by heating or enzymatic breakdown, or mostly from the meat tissues or byproducts. Then these group of ingredients, this digests, plays an important role for improving the flavor, that is giving the meat flavor, particularly when we don't use the real meat. Then this digest helps in giving the flavor. So this is generally made from the liver or turkey or chicken. So this digest is added with the ingredients when real meat is not used. Further, additional ingredients used for dry pet foods like corn gluten feed, meat meal or bone meal, then animal fats and oil. So these are the other additional ingredients from animal origin: meat meal, bone meal and fats. And most of the manufacturer, to complete the nutritional requirement for pet food, they will add the vitamins, minerals and some sulfur containing amino acids or other amino acids. So that makes it nutritionally more suitable for dog nutrition. In continuation to the ingredients or raw materials, here is another set of ingredients which are additional or miscellaneous. For a meat-like texture, dry foods require more starch ingredients, proteinaceous adhesives such as collagen, albumin and casein. So these are important for dry pet foods. Then for semi-moist pet foods usually require binders such as cereal flours, soybean flakes, bran flakes, soluble carbohydrates, emulsifiers, stabilizers, and dried skim milk or whey. So these are requirements for the semi-moist pet foods. Further, antioxidants are often used to retard the oxidation and to prevent the rancidity of fats. These include butylated hydroxyanisole or BHA, or sometimes butylated hydroxytoluene, BHT, and tocopherol. So these are the antioxidants used to prevent the rancidity. And finally, to prevent the mold and bacterial growth, sometimes other preservatives like sucrose, propylene glycol, and sorbic acid or salt of sorbic acid like potassium sorbate or sodium or calcium sorbates are used. So these are the preservatives used and antioxidants. Here we will see a standard or model pet food formula. In the left side column we can see total it makes 100 with maize 60%, spent in fat 8%, spent in meal 20%, soybean meal 10.3% and dicalcium phosphate 1%, further salt 0.4%. All this together makes 99.4%, and remaining 0.6% are different additives including vitamins, minerals or some amino acids, etc. So this formulation, when we make the pet food, it will have a composition as given in the central column, that is protein 22%, crude fiber 2.2%, ether extract 9%, energy 3360 kilocalorie, calcium 1.29%, phosphorus 0.73% and moisture less than 8%. So in the right side column we can see the standard nutritional requirements in case of dog for adult and puppy, which we have discussed earlier in the nutritional basics for the pet animals. Now we will discuss about the details manufacturing process of pet food separately for extrusion methods and canning methods, but the general manufacturing process for pet food is similar to that for processed food. So we have discussed several lectures on meat processing or dairy product processing. Some of the basic steps or considerations are same. The flesh products used in pet foods, that is the meat origin foods, must be prepared separately by rendering. So rendering is a special technology for byproduct processing I have discussed earlier. So all the proteinaceous component, fat or offals need to be processed, and from which we can get the meat meal, bone meal or blood meal, and that will be added as an ingredient in pet food processing. Generally, meat is rendered by separate companies and they supply these ingredients for the pet food manufacturers. The meat products intended for canned food must be delivered fresh and used within 3 days, and frozen meat products also be used for dry food. So sometime when we are going to make the pet foods by canning, then we need to use the raw or fresh meat origin ingredients, and if they are in a low temperature within 2-3 days it should be used, otherwise they should be in a frozen condition both for canning or dry foods. The manufacturing process entails grinding and cooking the flesh and flesh byproducts. As I have mentioned, actually the all ingredients should be ready separately, especially the meat origin or byproducts origin should be processed separately by grinding, heating and sterilization. Then these ingredients are mixed with other ingredients for the pet foods as per the recipe requires, and they should be mixed thoroughly, and then it undergoes further processing either by extrusion or by canning. Now after that the finished product will be filled into containers and packaging in case of extrusion methods, whereas in case of canning it is first packed and then it undergoes the heat processing like autoclaving or retort processing. Now any animal origin ingredients to be used in the pet food, if the final product is not made by airtight sealing, then all these ingredients must be heat treated at 90 degrees Celsius before use in the pet food manufacturing. So all these ingredients we have a list here like milk and milk-based products, gelatin, hydrolyzed proteins, egg products, collagen, blood products from disease-free animals that has passed for fit as a human consumption, then processed animal protein including fish meal, rendered fat or fish oils, dye and tricalcium phosphate and flavoring digests. So all these ingredients are coming from animal origin. They should be heat treated at 90 degrees Celsius before using to the pet food manufacturing. So now before we go to the details discussion about the pet food manufacture, we will briefly discuss about the processing of byproducts for pet food, because here byproducts is used as an important ingredient in the pet food processing. So byproduct itself need a separate processing before it becomes an ingredient for the pet foods. So byproducts undergo various processing techniques to ensure they are safe, digestible and nutritionally valuable. The main methods for byproduct processing industry include the rendering that we have discussed earlier in details in my byproducts processing class or utilization class, and also there can be dehydration and hydrolysis process for these byproducts. So rendering is one of the important process. This is a high temperature process that converts animal byproducts into stable and usable ingredients like meat meal, bone meal and fat products. So this is a process of high temperature sterilization. First there will be heating, then melting of fat, then sterilization. After that it will be unloaded, fat will be separated and the semi-solid non-fat materials will be dried, and then it undergo grinding, and then we get all this meal like meat meal, bone meal and fat. Now all these are separately used as per the formulation in the pet foods. So here once again briefly we will explain about the rendering, though I have two separate lectures on this. One is about the details about the rendering plant, another is about the details methods of processing in rendering. So it is a process mostly done by the meat industry people. From there these ingredients come to the pet food manufacturer. So right side diagram briefly it is given the raw material, there will be cutting into pieces, then it undergoes high temperature processing under steam, and then the fat and proteinaceous part gets separated. The fat portion is stored separately and the protein portion after drying undergo milling and we can get the meal. So there we can get meat meal, bone meal, blood meal, and the other side we can get different fat. Both of them are separately added or used for the pet food manufacturing. The second important step or processing for the byproduct is to remove the moisture so that it can be stored for long time and all the ingredients or nutrients get a concentrated shape. So here all the organ meats or blood or bone can be processed and made into meals. So after sterilization there will be dehydration or drying, then they undergo grinding and we get the meat meal or blood meal or bone meal. Similarly, there is another process which is called hydrolysis. So this process where proteins and fats are broken down using enzymes, acids or heat and making them more easy to digest. So hydrolysis is done sometime to break them proteins and fats so that the digestion will be easier. Now we will discuss in details about the processing of pet foods, both for dry pet foods and wet pet foods. So in case of dry pet foods it undergoes extrusion, in case of wet pet foods it undergoes canning. So the first step is grinding and pre-cooking the meat. The meat products are coarsely ground to the desired texture. To facilitate further processing, the ground meat is cooked in a continuous cooker with live steam at the appropriate temperature. Then the flesh products are reground after initial cooking to produce a more uniform consistency. Now for semi-moist or chunky foods, the batches are deliberately cooked unevenly to create the desired chunky texture. So the semi-moist means it will go for canning, but in case of extrusion, these cooked meat things will be mixed with other ingredients and it undergoes extrusion cooking. Now the next step is blending and shaping, that is mixing all the ingredients and then giving a shape. The mixture is blended with other ingredients such as cereal grains, vitamins, minerals, etc. Then dry and semi-moist foods are usually heated, so the mixture will partially dextrinize. The dextrin will be formed and thickening of the starch will happen. To achieve the marbled look of real meat, the meat mixture may be cooked unevenly. That means half of the batch colored red and the other half is white. The semi-moist foods must be stabilized to retain the proper amount of moisture in the dry and semi-moist parts of the food. So some stabilizer is required for the semi-moist foods. Now extrusion processing. This step is particularly for the dry pet food manufacturing. Here dry and semi-moist foods may be extruded under high pressure through a device that is called extruder with a orificed plates to obtain the shape and size of the specific product. So there are different kind of molds like structure at the end with a very narrow aperture through which the dough is passed under high pressure and temperature, so it get fully processed, cooked and sterilized, and it forms different shape like biscuits, kibbles, meatballs, patties, pellets or slices. An alternative to extrusion is to gelatinize and expand the mixture. That's another way of processing for dry pet foods. And for marbled meat, the mixture of red and white meat is extruded together and broken into chunks. So that's another variety under the extrusion processing. Next important step is packaging and labeling. So in case of extrusion cooking, once the products are coming out, it undergoes some finishing stages which we will discuss later. After that, it will be put into the packaging containers which is already labeled and it will be sealed. But in a large scale processing, all these steps happens in a continuous manner. So for dry foods, they are poured into the pre-printed containers and pouches. Whereas in case of canning, the packaging or filling happens before the processing, either in the retort pouches or in the cans. After preheating and mixing all the ingredients, it will be filled and sealed hermetically. Then it undergoes high temperature processing and cooling. So that's the difference for two different methods for dry pet food and moist pet food. Now another important step is sterilizing. So in case of dry pet food, the sterilization happens in the extruder where a very high pressure and temperature works for processing and everything gets sterilized. But that happens after mixing all the ingredients and making a dough. But in case of wet pet food, the canning process, here all the materials are preheated, mixed and filled into the container. Then it goes to the high heat processing. So this is done in a retort. Sometimes it is by batches or by continuous method. It is also called as hydrostatic retort. That is the moisture, steam creates the pressure. So this is also called as retort processing. The cans are heated at 121 degrees Celsius for 80 minutes, though the cooking temperature and time depends on the content and size of the packet or can and the pressure of the steam and all the other aspect. The cans are quickly cooled to around 38 degrees Celsius after processing, and then they are dried and labeled. So these containers are packaged into bulk packaging by corrugated cardboard boxes or shrink wrapped with plastic in corrugated cardboard trays. So now they are ready for distribution and marketing. So this is an important step, retort processing for the canning, that is for the wet pet foods. Now this is the last part or steps, that is the storage. So there are innovations in pet food processing and packaging leading to the high quality product and long shelf life. In case of canning, as we have discussed earlier in meat products, so shelf life is very high, 3 to 5 years, because it is fully sterilized and packed with vacuum. So there is no scope for spoilage and no nutritional loss. Whereas in case of dry pet food, the shelf life is about 10 to 12 months. and it requires additional preservatives as I have mentioned earlier, like antioxidants are used, sometimes antifungal agents like sodium or potassium sorbates and tocopherol etc. to have the better storage life. So now we are at the end of this lecture today. Today's topic is about the processing of pet foods by using the byproducts. So here briefly I have discussed first about the processes of pet food preparation, like the extrusion process as a whole I have discussed, and then I have told the canning process as a whole through the diagrams. Then later I have discussed details about the different raw materials and their preparation, especially the preparation of the meat origin ingredients or byproducts by rendering, they should be made ready. Then later we have discussed the actual details for manufacturing, how the pet food processing is done, how the ingredients is made, and then we have discussed mainly two methods in details. One is the extrusion method of pet food preparation for dry pet foods. Another is the semi-moist or moist pet food by the method of canning, in which important steps are like, in case of canning, it is packaging is done before and then it undergoes high temperature processing, whereas in case of dry pet food making, it is the ingredients are mixed, a dough is made, then it undergoes the processing, and then it is having some additional flavoring etc., and then it is packed at the end. So hope this makes some useful learning about the pet food processing. Thank you.